Hello! This is a video showing how I edit Being Honest with Your Ex. First of all, we record the audio and I'm not showing you how that happens because it is boring and obvious. These names are already here because I have already started this and then I was like, oh yeah, I was going to record this. So, this is what audio waveform sound things look like. Often we are clever and we count 1 through 8 between the two of us. This time we did not do that, and so what I will normally do is realize that we often end at the same time and then find a bit of the conversation that I can sync up. So let's see what SJ is saying here.
I found a really cute video of a giraffe the other day.
It's really a nice example of the kind of shit we talk about before we start recording. That looks like it could fit in there. Let's find out if it does.
I am recording.
That's nice.
Did I tell you that I accidentally grew magic mushrooms in my bedroom?
Yeah, you did. And I didn't assume you meant like in a pot. So there we go. That is the syncing process. You find a bit of conversation where it's obviously one person saying something and the other person replying. I'm using Logic Pro. Very fancy. Ooh. Logic Pro 9. I've not used anything after that. And I've got it set up so that wherever the marker is, if I press T, it splits the selected clip. And then I just Control Z that. So T, this is now 2 separate clips that I can move around independently. Boop-a-doo. The next thing I do is strip the silence, and this is the main reason I use Logic Pro. This is an amazing function that takes all of this and gets rid of the silences so that you can just see when someone is talking. So this obviously is not going to be used in the podcast, this big chunk here, so I can just get rid of all of those. I use the settings 2.1.1.1. I have found those are the best settings for the recordings that SJ and I do, but you can use something else if you like. The next thing I do is basically listen through the whole podcast and cut bits and bobs out. So I'm just going to start doing that, and you'll quickly see that the main thing I do is I cut gaps and silences and when people are talking over each other. So let's just do the first few minutes.
Did I tell you that I accidentally...
So I have it set up so that if I hold down Shift and F, it selects every clip after the one currently collected, or if I don't have anything selected, it selects everything after... No, it's meant to. Apparently it doesn't do that. So yeah, I select a clip and then Control Shift F means that I can move that and every clip after it. That is the main way I edit. So
Did I tell you that I accidentally grew magic mushrooms in my bedroom?
Yeah, you did. And I didn't assume you meant like in a pot. I assumed you meant like on your bed sheets or under your bed or in an old backpack that you'd forgotten about.
Like I just found...
So one thing I'll do is I'll go in and get rid of any of those little clicky noises because they drive me mad. And often in this first edit, I will close up the gaps. Sometimes I'll close them too much, so it feels like we're kind of speaking over each other and it's a bit much to listen to all at once. But after I've done my first edit, I'll go through and just listen to the whole thing once and then adjust stuff. And that's often when I space things out a little bit more. In an old backpack that you'd forgotten about.
Like I just opened my lunchbox.
You lifted up your pillowcase. So, because of the nature of talking internationally, we will often talk over each other, and if you listen here, you'll see that I say the same thing twice. You lifted up your pillow. So I'm just going to take the one out where I repeat myself. You lifted up your pillowcase. And that's not necessary either, so let's cut that. Let's move this back. So it's just a lot of cleaning up. You lifted up your pillowcase. There were mushrooms growing. And then, like I said, it's mostly just cutting gaps.
No, it's in a pot.
Is that illegal? Like, is that an illegal thing? And I'll just cut kind of non sequitur responses that don't need to be there.
No, it's in a pot.
Is that illegal? Like, is that an illegal thing?
I feel like it shouldn't be illegal to accidentally grow magic mushrooms from potting mix that you got from a hardware store.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah, the potting mix is from Bunnings.
I'll often pause when I know I want the other person to chat. It's just spacebar to pause, and then I'll move the next bit of dialogue up to that point. And then, as you'll see, while I'm listening, I'll be going ahead and just closing these gaps because there is no situation where I would want... What's SJ saying here?
I'm almost certain. Like, there's not... Like, I did not put...
So that is going to sound so much better if it's a lot tighter. Let's see how that goes.
I'm almost certain. Like, there's not... Like, I did not put magic mushrooms in my pot.
Now, often I will go in and cut out, like, repeating yourself, but in this case I think it's quite funny, her just processing this idea of magic mushrooms.
I'm almost certain. Like, there's not... Like, I did not put magic mushrooms in my pot.
I don't know, other people go into your room sometimes. I skipped this. Definitely what caused you to grow magic mushrooms though? Cool. Let's do some cleaning up. Okay, I'm gonna edit for a few minutes without explaining and you'll see how it all works. I don't know, other people go into your room sometimes.
Maybe someone spiked my plants with magic mushrooms.
They're trying to get your plants high.
Yeah.
So, if you move stuff while it's playing, it sometimes doesn't realise it's moved. So, last week we were talking about polysplosions. You look thrilled. Polysplosions. You look thrilled.
Last week was very, like, I just remembered a lot of things that I had chosen to forget, obviously.
What were those names again? Annabelle, Uma,
and Max.
So, in the last installment of The Adventures of the Polyamorous... Hi.
Yeah.
So... Oops, that's me saying I can have a break now, but I'm going to stop that. I'm not sure if I want to keep this whole bit or not. So, last week, we were talking about polysplosions. You look thrilled.
Last week was very, like, I just remembered a lot of things that...
Polysplosions.
Yes.
About polysplosions.
Yes.
You look thrilled.
Last week was very, like, I just remembered a lot of things that... Last week was... Last week, I just remembered a lot of things that I had chosen to forget, obviously.
What were those names again? Annabelle, Uma,
and Max.
So, in the last installment of The Adventures of the Polyamorous Duo, No, I think we're still a duo.
Are we still a duo?
I think we're still a duo. I also alternated pronouncing it duo and duo every time I said it.
Is duo American?
I think so. You know you have a very slight American accent?
Yeah. I am really...
So I know that this podcast goes long. If we skip right to the end, it is... I said an hour and a half, and I try to get them down to an hour absolute max. So while this is all fine stuff that I would normally be okay with keeping, I'm really just going to start trimming anything that isn't super pertinent, because otherwise we're going to go way over.
Is duo American?
I think so. What I'll sometimes do... is take all the stuff I've deleted and put it into a deleted scenes podcast. Somewhere, maybe. There we go. I tend to do it per podcast, so let's make a new one.
I've chosen to forget, obviously.
What were those names again? Annabelle, Uma,
and Max.
So, in the last installment...
I was like, but my accent's all fucked up.
You know you have a very slight American accent?
Yeah, I am really aware of this. Someone said that I had a good radio voice yesterday, and from talking to me on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, but my accent's all fucked up.
It's
Isn't that a problem?
just the letter R. That's the only one that you struggle with.
Struggle with, or I exceed with?
Augment. So, when you and I were first going out, I think we were maybe nervous about recording this one because it's us talking about cheating. And so we really delayed the start. Make sure you save your file, because if it crashes and you haven't saved it at all, you will lose everything. And this episode is cheating on my ex. So, when you and I were first going out, now I have vague memories of doing this and then like 10 minutes in being like, let's start again. So I'm going to see what happens if I cut forward like 10 minutes. Because most people, and this is going to come down to the difference between you and me yet again, a lot of people are like, oh, and it feels like sex, which is, I remember that conversation. I was very unhappy about, because when you're dating someone, you want to, and you had a bad time. And then you started dating on last week's episode of being on a... Is that where I was? No. So this is the point where I think it's going to start from. But just in case there's any gems, I'm going to listen through this whole bit. And this is a lot of the structural kind of side of it, is that I will listen through and be like, is this worth keeping? No, but I should listen to it once. So when you and I were first going out, not first going out, after you and I had been going out for a few months, I started dating someone called Annabelle. When you move the stuff and it doesn't update, if you hit space twice, it'll like stop and then be like, oh, I know where we are now, and start again. So that you'll see me doing that quite often. When I'd been going out for a few months, I started dating someone called Annabelle, not their real name. And then you started dating Annabelle, and we were like, that solves all the problems that we were having.
So I feel like we should be like, okay, so the previous episode we talk about all this stuff.
So when you... So yeah, we do this, and then I'm like, this is all rubbish, let's start again. But I want to listen to it just in case.
I feel like we should be like, okay, so the previous episode we talk about all this stuff. We're going to recap it and then talk about where we ended the last... And then we're going to talk from where we ended the last podcast, which was before a bunch of stuff I'm very ashamed of happened.
Is that you saying that, or is that you telling me we should say that?
No, that's me saying that.
Okay. So, last time we discussed the fact that you and I started dating, and I was heavily identified with... Yep. Sometimes when you're moving stuff, it freaks out. Dating, and I was heavily identified with polyamorous, and you were like, yeah, that sounds fun. Fun was the exact word you used. You were like, that sounds fun and stress-free, and certainly there will never be any issues whatsoever.
I mean, okay, that lasted for not very long.
And I was dating someone called Annabelle, and you became the jealousy monster.
I wouldn't say the jealousy monster. I just had a really bad time.
And then you started dating Annabelle.
Yes.
And we thought that had fixed it. We were like, we are so good at this. Do you remember how smug we were?
I actually don't. No.
I just remember going along to Polyvic and being like, we tell the story in the we had problems, episode, but we worked through them as a couple.
Yeah, and we were like, it took us like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And everyone was like, oh, usually that kind of thing takes
years.
Months of pain.
Yeah. And then Annabelle broke up with you, but not me, which is interesting. And we went overseas. And we took a break from polyamory. And then, like, a year later, I started dating
I don't think it was a year later.
This is the worst recap ever. Okay, you recap. Go.
No, I don't want to.
Okay, you can either recap or correct literally everything I say.
Okay, but you can keep going, but just that fact does not make sense.
Okay, I think I want to cut all this bit because it's going to be really tedious.
Okay.
So I did. So I'm just going to pretend we're starting now.
Alrighty.
You sound annoyed. Mm-mm. So, last week
I'm only just nervous that this is like the podcast that everyone will probably listen to.
I shouldn't have said that, should I?
Yeah. And then I'm like, uh-oh.
So before we started recording, I mentioned to SJ that this podcast is going to be called Cheating on My Ex, which means that people will probably listen to this before listening to the rest of it. And that put her in a weird headspace, which is why our intro is weird and awkward. I will often, while I'm editing, just kind of go back, like, In this case, it's going back a minute, and I'll just listen to that again to make sure that it flows into the next
Did
part.
I tell you that I accidentally grew magic mushrooms in my bedroom?
Yeah, you did. And I didn't assume you meant like in a pot. I assumed you meant like on your bed sheets or under your bed or in an old backpack that you'd forgotten about.
Like I just opened my lunchbox.
You lifted up your pillowcase and there were mushrooms growing?
No, it's in a pot.
Is that illegal? Like, is that an illegal thing?
I feel like it shouldn't be illegal to accidentally grow magic mushrooms from potting mix that you got from a hardware store.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah, the potting mix is from Bunnings.
Is that definitely what caused you to grow magic mushrooms there?
I'm almost certain. Like there's not like I did not put magic mushrooms in my pot.
I don't know, other people go into your room sometimes.
Maybe someone spiked my plants with magic mushrooms.
They're trying to get your plants high.
Yeah.
So, last week we were talking about polysplosions. You look
Yes.
thrilled. That's a fine transition.
Yeah.
So, last week we were talking about polysplosions.
Yes.
You look thrilled.
Last week was very like I just remembered a lot of things that I had chosen to forget, obviously.
So, on last week's episode of Being Honest with My Ex, we discussed our first tentative and polysplosive forays into ethical non-monogamy.
Horrifying. Horrifying.
Which is it doesn't like me having two things open at once. Fortunately, I think that's all the major deleted scenes in this.
just a mind just a minefield of broken hearts and panic attacks.
Cutting stuff off is sometimes weird.
Horrifying. Just a minefield of broken.
Why do I fade out like that?
Just a minefield of broken hearts and panic attacks and.
So most of what I do is selecting clips and moving them closer together.
Panic attacks and.
So many tears.
Mountains of.
And so when we first started polyamory, I started dating someone and you had a bad time. And then you started dating that same person and we were sort of like, this solves a lot of problems, which was a very nice short-term solution. She broke up with you and then later went overseas, so I stopped seeing her. And then months down the track, I was like, I want to start dating again. And I started seeing someone who we've dubbed Uma right before you left for a trip to Sydney with one of our housemates.
And then 3 days later you called me and you're like, I'm in love with someone. And I was like, what? Yeah.
I tend to cut out SJ's ums because they drive me mad. Sometimes they're good for like emotional content, but most of the time I kill them.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was having a really bad time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was having a really bad time and you having a really bad time. So you came back from Sydney, we sat down, we built a little fort, and we chatted for infinite hours and came to the conclusion
We're
that...
still in that room talking now.
I think we made that joke last week.
Oh, well. It's still good. Holds up.
And we decided to keep going out, which is why we're still together now.
What?
We decided to keep... Which is why we're still together now.
What?
Delay her reaction slightly for comedy. Which is why we're still together now.
What?
We decided to keep on dating, and I was allowed to keep seeing Uma on the proviso that while we were kind of dealing with this whole thing, I did not have sex with her.
This is correct.
And that... have sex with her.
This is correct.
And that's where we left off.
I think that the whole polyamory experience.
Off.
I think the whole polyamory.
So I tend to like the original intro, but if you can cut in the second hand.
I think that the whole polyamory experience.
So that or where we left off.
I think that the whole polyamory experience really brought.
So yeah, SJ will often start a sentence twice. I probably do the same thing. I'm just more aware of it in SJ because I don't notice my own speech pattern as much. I notice some things that I do, but starting a sentence 3 times is not one of them. And so I'll often grab 2 bits of the same start of the sentence and mix them together, or pick one and go with that off.
I think that the whole polyamory experience really brought to light. Really brought to light that you think you know what something means.
Oh, yes.
And then you do not know exactly what that something means.
I want you to remember the words that you just said, because that...
I don't... Ah!
That you just said, because that...
I don't... Ah!
So this bit here, I know later on we don't revisit that kind of specific thing, so I could cut that now, but I'm going to leave it in, and then during the second edit, that's when I'd be like, do I want that now that I've listened to the second half of the conversation? Yes or no? That is almost immediately going to come up again.
I know. It came up so many times.
So I had agreed. So I hate lip smacking. I hate it.
So many times.
So I had agreed not to have sex with Uma, which I was very unhappy about, because when you're dating someone, you want to have sex with them, as a rule. I'm not saying everyone all the time, but generally speaking, it's pretty safe to say that when you're dating and in love and have had good sex with someone, you probably want to continue having sex with that person without an external force telling you that you can't.
Checks out? Yeah, makes sense.
And so... force telling you that you can't.
Checks out? Yeah, makes sense.
I just want to make sure the gap there was long enough for that joke to land. And so, like, the next day, or like 2 days later, it was really, really not that long after that conversation, I went and hung out with Uma. I went and I think I was giving her a lift to work because she worked before the trams. She works, I don't want to go into too many details, but she has a job that requires getting up before the trams ran. I went and I think I was giving her a lift to work because she worked before the trams. She works, I don't want to go into too many details, but she has a job that requires getting up before the trams ran on certain... Too many details, but she has a job... But she has a job that... But she has a job... Cool, so I was thinking if I could just go from like... I went and I think I was giving her a lift to work because if I could go from there to like, because she has a job that is before the trams, and cut out this whole kind of blathering bit in the middle. I can't, and that happens sometimes, but that's okay, because podcasts are people talking, and sometimes people talk like real life people. Using this sentence that I'm saying right now as a great example. She worked before the trams. She works, I don't want to go into too many details, but she has a job that requires getting up before the trams ran on certain days. So I would go and give her a lift into work because I'm a romantic, and also that was a really good way to hang out with her. Because we were both very busy people. And so I went into, she'd unlocked the door so I could come in.
I am surprised at how much detail you are giving here.
And so I went into, she'd unlocked the door so I could come in.
I am surprised at how much...
So I could come in and
I am surprised at how much detail you are giving here. I do not want to give this much detail in return.
You don't have to. It's okay.
Okay.
So I went...
Okay.
So I went into her bedroom, and it was half an hour before she had to go work, so I lay down next to her because she was like, I just want to be in bed for 15 more minutes. So I went and lay down next to her and talked to her while she masturbated.
Is that sex?
I might actually lengthen this pause because that's a pretty good dramatic moment. While she masturbated.
Is that sex?
Go a little bit longer because while she masturbated.
Is that
It's too long. While she masturbated. While she masturbated.
is that sex? Is the question.
And so yeah, whew. I firmly maintain that it is.
Huh.
You can see why I skip ahead and get rid of these gaps, because it's super annoying to have to stop and do it. And have I ever told you my personal definition of sex?
No, but I feel like I might learn it very soon.
It actually, now that I think about it, the thing I'm... Lip smack, la 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 la, lip smack. Personal definition of sex?
No, but I feel like I might learn it very soon.
It actually, now that I think about it, the thing I'm about to say does not cover... Oh no, yes it does, yeah. So my definition of sex is... Don't need that random... So my
Very soon.
So my definition of sex is two or more people who are consensually interacting when one either inserts something into the other in a sexual way or has an orgasm.
What? I think that's a...
Or has an orgasm.
What? I think that's a crap definition.
Why?
Because then, like, what about people who don't like penetration?
Or orgasm.
Or
People who
sex
like-
without orgasm?
People who like neither penetration of any kind nor sex without orgasm.
If you... So, like, if I, like, wank you off, but you don't come, is that sex?
You can make an argument for insertion there.
What? No way!
Maybe genital stimulation.
I mean, definite... I don't know, man.
Lip smack.
I don't...
Logic has a great thing where if you're editing, the clip that is furthest to the right will overtake the other one. So like if there's dialogue on both of these, I'll just be like, nope, only the one on the right now.
I don't know, man.
What's your definition? How do you define sex? Because most people, and this is going to come down to the difference between you and me yet again. A lot of people are like, oh, when it feels like sex, which is really unhelpful.
What are you talking about? When it feels like sex is completely objective and universal measure.
Okay, so I'm going to change mine to when there's stimulation of of sexual organs, or an orgasm.
So, like, if you masturbate in front of someone, does that count?
If it's consensual and you're interacting and you masturbate in front of someone, yes, I would count that as sex. In
Okay.
fact, that's literally the definition we're addressing right now in this situation. Yes, I would count that as sex.
Okay,
In fact, that's literally the definition we're addressing right now in this situation.
what if you are on the...
When I started doing this editing, I would have gone in and cut that so I didn't say anything twice. It would be really choppy and jerky, but now I'm much calmer about it and totally okay with it. In fact, that's literally the definition we're addressing right now in this situation.
What if you are on the phone to someone and you're talking sexy and what counts as genitals?
Sexual organs is what I said.
Because technically, right, like, breasts aren't, like, sexual organs.
Aren't they?
I thought they weren't.
I thought they were.
Like, they're very much...
I don't like when two people are talking at once, so even though it does sometimes happen, I will reduce it as much as I can. I thought they were.
Like, they're very much sexualized.
Anyway, that's half an hour. I thought I would just do a little thing of showing how the recording process happens. So in half an hour, we got through 7 minutes of the podcast, and that'll give you a pretty... I mean, I did stop and talk a few times, but that will give you a rough idea of how long it takes to edit one of these things. For me, the key things are getting rid of those gaps because I do not like them. They're bad. Cut them. And then when someone goes, just say someone goes and starts a sentence 3 times just like that, I will cut 2 of those 3 because it does not add anything, it is not necessary, and it doesn't take that long to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in space.